no shit, the same game, we're just adding characters. New characters, not really any big changes, just new characters. How is that bad? Is it fun? Why change it? Great question. It is fun. Why change it? Because anything, if you play the exact same thing for too long, is going to get stale. Especially if it's like a headliner game like a Street Fighter. Street Fighter 5 went through...
He does have a point, but they shouldn't change Street Fighter, or any company shouldn't change the fundamental way you play their game if there isn't a good gameplay reason. How should I say this? People would get bored of the game. That's fine. But people need to realize that being bored of a game is not a bad thing. Why do I'm not going to say fighting game players because I feel like this applies to every game genre, but why do players feel like the fundamental game aspects needs to be changed for every video game, like every year or like every year and a half? Like, especially if the game like Street Fighter 6 has a very strong and consistent and very fun core, why do they need to change it? All right, Maximilian dude, what's up? What you got to say?
Let's go! There are several other things that I would prefer to talk about. That's the overall quote-unquote like state of fighting games. We definitely got to talk about this shit. And I would like to make some astute observations just because in my space, I've had to be around a very large majority of fighting game communities from casual to competitive over the past like 15 years of my life and see what they think and respond with what their grievances are, what's good, what's bad, like all that kind of stuff, right? There's a lot of turmoil in the modern fighting game space, and it's really difficult to take the entirety of it, so it's best we just like focus. So let's just focus on several things that have gone down over the past 2-ish weeks, and we'll just like boil it down, or things coming to a head, you know, that kind of stuff. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. So that's Tekken 8, that's Street Fighter 6, that's also Fatal Fury, a game that's not even out yet. Okay, let's be real. Let's also put in MK1 because MK1 I think is a much better contrast slash representation of what is going on and the comparison of what's going on to all of them. What I'm gonna do is we are gonna dig deep now. We're gonna dig deep into our psyche, into our...
I know you were trying to say it's all good. Text wasn't really the best way for a debate that need VC because I think some of your messages got lost in text. Yeah. I see what you're saying. I guess because I feel like I'm trying to be more empathetic to, you know, what the situation is that I can infer. It's just that like I guess about my fundamental take is that I fighting game players and the community as a whole need to be more empathetic, need to be more patient, and need to be less so reactionary when it comes to stuff that companies are doing. Not to saying that you shouldn't do like say your criticisms, but this whole ride or die type of mentality that a lot of fighting game players not only implement but also like tell other people's like. Not like big content creators. I think a lot of content creators in the fighting game scene have more balanced takes, but like some like the lesser known ones, especially like the Twitter ones, it's just like you ride or die for a game, and if the community does anything wrong, that they're shit. They don't know how to do their job. Games were much better in the past. Yada yada. You know the spiel, basically.
into our personal feelings about what's going on with fighting games, and we're going to pull out the deepest, darkest, most negative, gut-wrenching reactions about every single one and compare them to every single one to figure out which one feels the worst, which thing is going to actually make us feel the worst.
Oh, no.
Actually, I'm not doing that. I'm going to provide maybe a slightly more interesting.
If we're comparing the situations for each community, I think Tekken is the worst so far. If I had to rank them, I would say Tekken's at the top, SNK, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter 6, and then everything else is beneath that.
The issues that are happening with all these fighting games almost have nothing to do with each other, and they are all severely unique things for every game, and we're sitting at a unique period of time right now where all of this stuff sort of came to a head at the same point or is happening in the same week. So let's just like break it down. Obvious thing, Tekken 8. Okay, yeah, we get what's going on. There's an issue with the current game's balance, a commitment to the absolute insanity that was the first season of Tekken 8. All things considered, Tekken 8 was already a game that like allowed you to explore and do some pretty crazy stuff with those characters and things, and now they just want to like extend that to a way higher degree that is starting to piss people off. So yeah, we all know kind of the discourse behind Tekken 8, and it's the fact that in my eyes the developers chose to change way too much in the direction that we were not anticipating, much less they said. So that's what's going on with Tekken 8. It's like, okay, yeah, they changed a lot, but they did it in the opposite way that we all thought they were going to do, and now it's leaning in a direction that is kind of scary and weird if this is the future of the game. Okay, sure, I get you. I'm with you. I completely agree. Let's talk about Street Fighter 6. Street Fighter 6 has almost the complete exact problem. Street Fighter 6 is a game that has been out for almost 2 years, and the only thing that has had adjustment to its core mechanical systems is the fact that Drive Rush went from being a forward input to 2 buttons, right? Forward to 2 buttons. This game is getting close to like 24 months of existence, and the way you play the game pretty much has almost not changed at all. Yeah, reversals, also like being able to do wake up reversals and stuff. The mechanic is still there. The way you change it is like slightly different, right? They made it so that you can't really screw up a drive reversal like on wake up. So most of those things are still functionally the same game that you have been playing for like the past. Here's what's crazy. It might even go all the way back to the old betas. I got a fuzz in my hair. The game has been no shit. The same game. We're just adding characters. New characters. Not really any big changes, just new characters. How is that bad? Is it fun? Why change it? Great question. It is fun. Why change it? Because anything, if you play the exact same thing for too long, is going to get stale. Especially if it's like a headliner game like a Street Fighter. Street Fighter 5 went through.
He does have a point, but they shouldn't change Street Fighter, or any company shouldn't change the fundamental way you play their game if there isn't a good gameplay reason. How should I say this? People would get bored of the game. That's fine. But people need to realize that being bored of a game is not a bad thing. Like, why do I'm not going to say fighting game players because I feel like this applies to every game genre, but why do players feel like the fundamental game aspects needs to be changed for every video game, like every year or like every year and a half? Like, especially if the game, like Street Fighter 6, has a very strong and consistent and very fun core, why do they need to change it? Like to me, Street Fighter 6 is perfectly fine. I mean, yeah, they like throw loops and like certain drive rush mechanics, right? Like that needs to be changed. But the overall core Street Fighter 6 is fun to me. And I don't think they should change it. They shouldn't change it, because if it's already good and stable and works, why change it? I don't know. Like, being bored of Street Fighter 6 is not a bad thing. If you're bored of Street Fighter 6, be bored. Go play another game and then come back I don't know, a couple months later and play the game again. Like I don't know why there's this constant need for developers to always fundamentally change their games like every year. It's like I said, especially if it's a really good like stable core foundation like Street Fighter does. Like it's very strong, very stable, and it works and it's fun. I don't know. I don't get that. I don't get that point because like that's one of the things that fighters had an issue with, where people were like in season one, a lot of the characters felt the same for the most part. Well, I would say majority of the roster was unplayable, and the only good characters were characters that played relatively the same. So in season two, they fixed that up. A lot of characters had more unique identities, but it still had this whole top down problem. And so basically the way you played the game at a top level and at some point a casual level was the same because a majority of your roster wasn't good, but the core system mechanics of fighters overall didn't really change that much. All they had to do was just make some characters stronger and then make characters themselves unique, not change the system. I mean, to be fair, there were plenty of system changes over Fighter's lifespan, but like the core aspect of Fighters did not change. All they did was just make characters more unique. And it's like the game survived off of that. Like the biggest change to Fighters was adding more assists and some of the sparking changes. And like I guess special tag as well, that changed the game up pretty significantly. But like that's like what, three changes over the span of 7 years, and the overall core of fighters once again is still the same. Like I don't know. Yeah, the game doesn't need anything new besides characters and balance. Like they're supposed to add something major, like what, like are they supposed to add something major like Wild Assault, which killed a lot of fun for the game, and that mechanic is still ass even today. Yeah, exactly. Like Strive had a really good fundamental core, and then I don't know if this was a complaint at the time, but like I would assume that people were like, Strive is too boring. Like this game is boring, and then they added Wild Assault, and that literally ruined the game for a lot of people. And then people complained about the mechanic, and it's like, but you guys wanted the game to fundamentally change, so they added a fundamentally changed mechanic, and you're not happy. It's like you can't like. There's a difference between a good fundamental change and a bad fundamental change, right? They could have added another mechanic to Strive, and it would have played out differently. But like when you already have and a lot of fighting games have a really strong core, right? Even like quote unquote party games or unbalanced games like Fighters, Marvel, uh Skullgirls, like all these like unbalanced games or like crazy high damage, high mix up games have a good fundamental core, right? That they build around. And to fundamentally change that like every year or so, it's not, to me, it's not logical. It's not logical. Why would you not take the fundamental core that they have and then change the characters, right? If the game is too boring, then do what Strive did and give characters new moves, right? If Ryu is too boring to play after what, a year and a half of playing him, give him like a DP that side switches, or maybe give him a DP that like moves more forward but has less damage, or like add new moves to the characters and not change the core. Like this whole aspect of we need to change how the game is fundamentally played every year so the game doesn't get stale. It's so bad. I don't. It's such a bad idea.
way more changes significantly quicker in the time frame it had, much less Street Fighter 4 also went through way more changes significantly quicker. Street Fighter 3 also went through way more changes significantly quicker because within 2 years after New Generation was released, we were already at Third Strike. Right now, Street Fighter 6 is getting like a little stale, and what's really good in the game is obviously really good. There's some very interesting community comparisons of like, you know, Tekken 8 to Street Fighter at the moment, and to me, it's like, they are the exact opposite of a problem. You got one game that people have been playing so long that they're asking for a shakeup in some way, and you got another game that people have not been playing for that long, has already gone through several micro shakeups on the way to its season 2, and by the time season 2 happened, they were like, brah, they just like kicked the door down, and they're like, oh, we're just changing everything in a weird direction. No, these are not the same problem, my dude. I get it. All fighting games in their next iterations will get quote unquote easier to play for casual players. That goes all the way back to the 90s. This is not a new thing, but still, functionally speaking, we have a couple of games that do give you a lot more tools to work with, a lot more stuff to work with. So this is very different than the casualization of fighting games in the mid 2010s, where the whole goal to casualize fighting games was just to take things away and just make it simpler. There was a way for you to give like characters a bunch of tools and shit and a bunch of things to work with, and it could be really fun for casuals, and the high level might have issues for it, but the high level still is really good, and they still are the conquering reigning champions. You know what game that is called, chat? It's called Tekken 8 Season 1. So I think Season 1, as much as it needed refinement, had a pretty good balance of that stuff. What we wanted was that refinement, and now what people are asking for in Street Fighter is a quote-unquote refinement. Just for comparison's sake, we know these are two very different issues between these games right now. If Street Fighter 6 got a Tekken 8 Season 2 adjustment, Street Fighter 6 throw loops would work everywhere, not just the corner. You could now get burned out without your back hitting the wall. Drive rush costs less. The majority of moves on the majority of characters now leave you plus on block. Some people do not understand how significant of a change the Tekken 8 Season 2 patch was. It is significantly different. It is terrifying. Air drive impact, air drive rush, you know, like you would have to hold a block string in Street Fighter like you're playing Dragon Ball FighterZ. How about this? Parrying would also take away gray health. That's what the next season of Street Fighter would do. If this was a Tekken 8 patch, next season of Street Fighter, parrying takes away gray health, just in general. Two very different issues, okay? So there's two games. We have another game, Fatal Fury, a game that's not even out yet. This game's problem is specifically guest characters and their inclusion of said guest characters. For a while, it was the game's online functionality throughout that first beta, and like, oh my god, they've learned nothing about how to make an online fighting game since the first one. Please, no. That was mostly alleviated in the second beta. Most of the issues that were there were sort of alleviated. So that was like, okay, you know, they got it. But now they have guest characters taking the places in the launch roster of many other characters that longtime fans would want. So in a similar way, right now, the legacy fans of Tekken are being like hurt. And right now, also in a similar way, the legacy fans of SNK are being hurt. There's a new priority for how things work. Even though you love these things from the previous game, well, you can maybe just wait for that while we try to sell this product. You know what I mean? These are very different things, but in the same result, the same thing is happening. We're getting two hardcore fan bases that feel like they're being somewhat disrespected in some way.
Thank you everyone for making it this far into the video. Just gonna take a quick break to do some shoutouts. First, shoutouts to my friends' channels. Please consider checking them out as they provide a variety of content, so at least one of them will have something that you'll enjoy. Second, if you live near the York, PA area, please head down to Ready Up Gaming Lounge. It's a place where gamers from every genre can come together and play in a comfortable and chill environment. They are open from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day and hold dedicated events every week. For my channel's interest, they run Fighting Fridays, where for $5.30, you can play a multitude of fighting games with various players. They have big games like Street Fighter 6, Tekken 8, and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, but they also have niche games like Dragon Ball FighterZ, Guilty Gear Strive, Rivals of Ether 2, and more. Finally, shout out to all my supporters on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. You guys really make doing content fun and worth pursuing. Alright, back to the video.
Again, these are very different problems. Like, the inclusion of these real-lifers in SNK is nothing.
Yeah, like, these situations are so vastly different. It's kind of wild.
like what's happening to Street Fighter, which clearly needs a shakeup in its mechanics, which is nothing like Tekken, which shook up its mechanics way too much in a direction that nobody wanted. We got 3 different problems here. And let's take the last one, Mortal Kombat 1. The last big boy. And for the majority of people that are watching this, you don't care about how Mortal Kombat plays as a video game. You just don't. It's never been a priority. It's never been the most important thing about the game, because mostly the folks that engage with NRS and last Mortal Kombat games are there for the content. And to be real, they were justified as shit, bro. The content in MK1 was lacking, and it still is lacking as we move like 2 or getting close to 2 years after the game has been out. So yeah, there's still many things that are like, this should not be a problem. It still is, even when it comes to online functionality. But many of the things that made Injustice 2 great and sold people on MK11 were not the things that were present, and a lot of people didn't like the story mode, so just screw that game, I'm out, you know? But I'm here to tell you that MK1 is in the best space it ever has been right now. As a video game, as a game that you can play, and almost the entirety of the NRS community has echoed this, the same people that were harking on this game being absolute ass trash for the last year and a half, and they're just livid that this is the only thing they can do, it's the only thing they can play. They've gotten to a point where MK1 is actually pretty fun. Watching competitive MK1 is actually pretty fun. At this point, the future of that game is sort of left in turmoil. We don't know where the hell it's gonna go, but my dude, Mortal Kombat 1 is such a better game than it was like a year ago, such a better game than it was 6 months ago. It's way more interesting to watch, and it's way more interesting to engage with as a video game, but that's only if you enjoy the gameplay. And if you don't...
Okay, I wish Eldo was here so he can elaborate. I don't know much about MK's situation, so I'm gonna take Max's word on this. I wish Eldo was here so he can add a little bit more context if the game feels better to play for him, or if he's even touched the game at all. But yeah.
Just enjoy the gameplay, then my dude, you're not going to find those things that were missing from launch. So I understand it's not perfect. This is another completely different issue that every single one of these games is going through. I will say there's an overall quote unquote narrative that the bigger problem with all fighting games right now is the casualization of fighting games. And I do agree to a certain point. Making big guesses constantly at high level may not be the most engaging way to like play a fighting game. The goal of like high level fighting games like back then was to pretty much get to that 50-50 situation, which took a bit of effort, and then you get a true 50-50. Nowadays it's like 50-50, who gives a shit, man? Dude, I deal with that shit all the time. So to be like, oh, the gameplay of Tekken 8's just like MKX, that's not true. Maybe for the first like few months of that game, sure. But still, I agree that I don't think the highest level of fighting games should just be boiling down to a guess. 4 to 5 to 6 times per round, boiling down to guesses.
That I agree with. Not every fighting game should be like that. I agree with that. But I do think, how should I word this? I've said this in my previous video, or my previous stream. Well, actually, was it a video I did? Something like that. Anyway, where I was talking about, like, people, one of the, fighting game content creators talking about, like, there's no defense in fighting games. Bro, people don't like, especially in this new modern era of video games, people don't like games, people don't like games that are more defensive, neutral-based. They don't. They just don't. They don't like it. Like, this whole issue of like, now I'm not saying you do, but I'm saying the wider gaming landscape, because I've seen this for myself. Like for a quick example, right? Grand Blue Fantasy was a very neutral based footsie game. The first iteration of the game. Rising came out and completely flipped the script on rushdown versus zoning versus pressure and stuff. And the game is a lot better, for one, and number two, has a way bigger of a player base than the original game. Now, this is multi-folded. It is a brand new game, new characters. I think that, well, I would probably say new content. They probably added new content as well. And it's just like, I feel like, in my experience, that people are more, the casual player base is more open to games that are more rush down heavy and more games where you can go in, do your shit, and if you, and like you just lose, like if you fuck up. Whereas like people aren't up to like, oh yeah, I just stay on like mid screen and poke with this button or poke with a fireball, and if it hits, then it's like I don't get anything, but I got 10% damage. I got 10% damage. I don't know. In my experience, and for what I understand, people don't really like defensive zoning games. I don't know. Watching MK1 Evo top 6 last year was hype, but that's the only thing positive you hear you talk about MK. God damn. They added Ghostface. No, I'm just kidding. No, but like, in my experience, a lot of people, in my experience, most of the casual player base doesn't like defensive zoning.
That will mean the game for you. I don't think that's particularly satisfying. And yeah, I do think that there is room for refinement. They literally changed that in Mortal Kombat X as the game went on. What I'm trying to communicate here is that the casualization is the modern narrative of like why fighting games suck. And I do agree to a certain point about at another point, these games don't inherently suck. Tekken 8 was pretty fun, man. Like for the majority of that first season, they were fixing things and it was getting better and they were toning down the bullshit until they decided to do an initial D Akina downhill U-turn. But in the same way, Street Fighter 6 was a system that most people really liked. In fact, Street Fighter 6 has been a game that has been this like, whoa, yeah, oh, no, whoa, yeah, oh, no, whoa, yeah. And now we're on this little like downward spiral. This game's the best. This game sucks. This game's the best. This game sucks. Like that has been what has been going on for the past near 2 years of Street Fighter. We have Mortal Kombat 1, which has gone from this thing to this game sucks. This game sucks. And now it's actually kind of good. Now it's actually sort of fun. Fatal Fury isn't even out yet. I can't even like harshly judge that situation because I'm just throwing it in here as comparison, but we can't even judge Fatal Fury. It's not actually out yet. It's just weird with all the stuff that's happening. The message of this story is that none of these things are the same. They may seem like they're the same if you like try to wrap everything around the casualization of fighting games as really everything. It's like, my dude,
they have vastly different problems.
The most uncasual friendly. I don't know what to. I don't know what I'm talking. Tekken 8 is like the most casually unfriendly Tekken game in season 1 that I think I've ever played, and it took a turn. You know, that turn definitely shifted. But season 1 was not particularly like, this game's just great for casuals. My dude, your ass got stomped by legacy skill. Yeah. And then you had to deal with all these other characters that were like 3 times the character when they're in heat mode.
Yep.
And then you had Street Fighter, which is not a game that is just inherently super easy to just pick up and be a god at. Like, no, dude, Street Fighter.
I feel like the casualization of fighting games apply mostly to anime games. I think that's where like the big. Oh shit! Hold on, give me a second. Sorry, I had to turn my light on. It's getting a little dark in my room. I feel like the whole casualization of fighting games apply more to anime games than the traditional fighters. I think it applies to anime games more.
6 is so mechanically dense that the majority of people that don't play fighting games will not be getting those mechanics in their head or functioning the way they want them to for like months. Like it'll take you so long to get out of gold or some shit. So to be real, these games by their intrinsic design are not super casual friendly. We have seen fighting games that were mega casual friendly and they were not fun games, dude. I don't even want to call names. I don't even want to say anything, but we know what happened over the past 10 years and how it had an impact on just like the way the game looks and how interesting is the engagements and stuff. And it just wasn't. It was just like, dude, what are we looking at? This game is not fun. The first few minutes of you playing it, you're like, this is not fun. So to me, there is at least the games we have right now. This is the positive max kicking in. We have something that at its core does have a lot of enjoyment, but needs refining. Tekken 8 needs refinement in the other direction. Street Fighter needs refinement in the opposite direction. But to be real, again, if Street Fighter 6 got a refinement the same way that Tekken did, if they just enhance all the really annoying shit, we're gonna make Drive Rush twice as fast. We're gonna make it so that you can throw loop anywhere on the screen. We're gonna make it so that you get burned out anywhere on the screen. No corner needed anymore. Yeah, people would be friggin' pissed. That would be friggin' stupid. Why would they do that? I don't know why they did it in Tekken. So anyway, all I'm trying to say is these problems aren't related to each other. And the good news is that even though we're in sort of a dire spot right now with some of these games and a big unknown one with Fatal Fury and the potential of Mortal Kombat, we're in a spot where things can get changed. Things can go through minor refinements and actually have them turn out in a positive in some way in like a 6-month time frame, if not a little bit less. I think it's been pretty clear that if you totally commit to just changing the spirit of your game in some way, then a lot of people are going to be upset, which is what happened with Tekken. And if you also don't commit to changing your game at all, you're going to run into a Street Fighter situation where people are just sick of seeing the exact same, like sort of like 1 out of 3 RPS situation over and over and over again. You know, I get it. I completely understand. To me, I don't think the casualization of all this stuff is inherently the problem, because these games aren't intrinsically casual friendly. It does leave me hope that devs now pretty sure they understand. I'm pretty sure they get it. And I am personally looking forward to, as much as I don't want to play Tekken as much as I wanted to, the game is still fun to a degree until like the really annoying shit happens. And Street Fighter has still been a fun game that I could jump back in and play and relearn and reacclimate and sort of come across like, yeah, dude, this is really engaging. But I could see how at a highest level, yeah, I can see how if you're only playing this game all the time, you just have to make those choices like so frequently and they have to be the right ones, you know? That could be a little frustrating of just like.
But like, why is that the game's fault? Here's the thing, right? Like I said, it's okay to be bored of a video game. I don't know why this seems like to be a hot take for a lot of pro fighting game players, but like, it's okay to be bored of a fighting game and play something else. Like, I don't know why, once again, there needs to be this hard commitment that every single year or every year and a half, the development team has to make a fundamental change to their core system, even if it works really well. Even if it works really well and it needs maybe like some fine tuning here and there. I don't know why there's this constant need for fundamental changes. Just change the characters. Add new stuff to characters. Add new content. Do something other than like fun, like make Drive Rush cost so like you could only use it 2 times per match. Like I've seen that shit, right? Like it's I don't know. I don't like any game. No matter what game you play, if that's the only thing you play, you're gonna be bored of it, right? That's just human nature. Why is it the game's fault for you not wanting to play the same game for 8 hours a day? That was a choice you made as your quote unquote job. That is your choice. I don't know why it's the game's fault for being the game. And you just stick to playing it for 8 hours a day, and somehow that's the game's fault or the developer's fault for making a stable system that works. I don't know.
I had to make the right call, you know? Ugh. This isn't nearly as bad as we think it is. This isn't the end of fighting games in general. In fact, there is a growing point that's happening right now. When fighting games were actually at their best potentially like a year ago, where it felt like, man, this can't get any better, right? This is just so crazy. This is just so cool. There's a little bit of a growth period happening at the moment in the growth of now a much more thriving fighting game market. And it feels like maybe, just maybe, like some stuff is happening on an executive level because the market is getting bigger, the games are getting larger. Some like outside factors might be coming in and messing shit up. So we don't know. We'll find out. There are.
Yeah, that's what I talked about a couple, Jesus Christ, almost like an hour ago. But like there has to be like external factors that are affecting these companies in a way that they're developing their games, and just people just aren't empathetic to that situation.
are new fighting games on the horizon. Fatal Fury isn't even out. 2XKO still is coming out. All I'm saying is I would like to have faith in the dopeness of fighting games. And I would like to have faith that we can get games that don't all require you to make just big guesses all the time. And the whole game just boils down to 5 or 6 big guesses per round. Like that doesn't feel necessarily great. I think we can get there. And to be real, my prediction is that Street Fighter is going to go through that change. I think it's going to be an evolved game that will go through that change. And I'm going to give Capcom the benefit of the doubt that they know this. And when we do eventually get a Season 2 announcement, possibly in the next couple months, we might see some stuff that really pushes the game forward.
Honestly, I really want a developer to make a fully neutral based fighting game and like just see how it works out, because I'm gonna put Max's video in the chat so you guys can like and subscribe and all that. But yeah, I really want somebody to make a fighting game in the complete opposite direction and just see how the player base and the casual player base enjoys the video game. I would really like to see that.